Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to call to order this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. And Madam Clerk, do we have any regrets this evening?
We have no regrets this evening.
Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I see none. At this time, I would belatedly ask everyone to rise, and assuming that everybody's ready and back there with all the fancy technology, we'll rise and sing "O Canada" together. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right, Council, how do you wish to deal with the minutes as listed in your agenda? Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes? Councillor O'Meara and Councillor Giddings, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and the minutes are confirmed. Now, we have a public presentation first, and then we have a number of delegations. I'd like to call the presenters from Lynbrook School forward to the podium, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Oh, we don't want to start it yet. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Burton. Good evening, councillors. My name is Amber Way. I am the head of school of Lynbrook School. If you can believe it, it has been a year and a half since I last stood here. And a lot has happened in a year and a half. It doesn't seem like a year and a half, but a year and a half ago, I stood here and thanked all of you. And now we have 85 boys who would like to thank you for your vote, and almost 20 staff members. So we have some of the boys here tonight for you. I wish the circumstances were different. I wish that Councillor Khan was sitting in his chair tonight, sharing his stories and sharing his amazing wit and sharing his brilliant smile, which I know none of us will ever forget. And like all of you, he had a lasting impact on my life and the life of all the boys and all the future boys of Lynbrook School. So we are here tonight to remember one of our heroes, to remember Councillor Khan, and I am very, very proud of the boys who have been able to come tonight to share this with you. So please remember Councillor Khan with all of us. Thank you.
Today's presentation is to remember and celebrate the life of Councillor Max Khan. Councillor Khan passed away on Sunday, March 30th, 2015, and his death was viewed as a tragic loss for his family and for the town of Oakville. However, because of his efforts and work, we are a better community.
Councillor Khan had many achievements. He represented Ward 6 in Oakville. He worked for the town of Oakville for 9 years, having been elected for third term on council last year. Councillor Khan was also a trial lawyer. He did pro bono legal work for several humanitarian organizations, but his political ambitions extended beyond the town. He was nominated last fall to run for the federal Liberal Party in the upcoming 2015 election in the Oakville North Burlington riding.
Councillor Khan, who lived in Oakville for over 25 years, had braved 3 bouts of cancer in his lifetime. As a cancer survivor himself, he was also a big supporter in the annual Terry Fox Run. His best initiative was to help implement free transit for seniors on Mondays.
Friends and colleagues insist Councillor Khan would put others' needs before his own, and that he wanted to make a difference. He was a strong advocate for Oakville. He was a tireless worker and a champion for the community.
Councillor Khan had the respect of his friends and colleagues on Oakville's town council. In fact, Pam Damoff, the Oakville town councillor for Ward 2 in Oakville, Councillor Khan was the reason Pam Damoff, the Oakville town councillor for Ward 2 in Oakville, first ran for the job. In her council newsletter, she fondly remembered Councillor Khan by stating, "Thanks, Max, for all you did to make Oakville and Canada a better place. You will be missed but never forgotten, my friend."
Likewise, Town of Oakville Mayor Rob Burton had the utmost respect for the work that Councillor Khan did for Oakville. Mayor Rob Burton stated when asked about Councillor Khan was a tireless tiger defending Oakville's residents. We have lost the people's champion, said Mayor Rob Burton. His absence will be deeply felt within the community of Oakville. He will be remembered for his positive, uplifting attitude, his strength of character, and his dedication to public service.
Councillor Khan also had the respect of the Canadian government. Here's a video of the Member of Parliament for Etobicoke North, Christy Duncan, speaking about Councillor Khan in a session of Parliament in Ottawa.
Loved life, was a 3-time cancer survivor, a councillor for Ward 6 in Oakville, a champion for his constituents, and someone who knew the meaning of service. Max was always enthusiastic, interested in asking if he could help. Today we think of Max and his family and friends whom he loved dearly. With condolences to his beloved father, mother, 3 sisters, brother, and a son. Max had been a resident of Oakville for the past 25 years and served as town councillor since 2006. He was thrilled to be nominated federal Liberal candidate for North Oakville, Burlington, and was planning to open his campaign office in just a few weeks with a much-anticipated launch. Oakville has lost a friend, a great man, and words cannot describe the loss to his family, friends, and community.
Councillor Khan was instrumental in helping Miss Way to start Limbrook by voting in favor of building Limbrook at town council meetings. At a town council meeting on July 10th, 2013, Councillor Khan gave a speech about all the ways building Limbrook would help the community and benefit us as students. Here's a video of that speech.
Thank you, Worship. I actually supported Ms. Way's proposal of the AAC, and unfortunately was defeated at that time, and I'm hoping the tides have turned. And with all respect to the ward councillor, this motion is defeated. It was interesting. Our earlier friend said that we should make our decision with a viewpoint of what's going to be written in tomorrow's paper. And I guess the implication there was that we should consider the political ramifications of this decision. Unfortunately, or fortunately, this is not good for us politically at all. No matter what decision we make, someone's going to get upset. And I guess maybe that's the beauty of this. We get to take the politics out of this decision. We get to stop counting heads, and we do the right thing. And the right thing here is that we get to preserve intact a heritage site, as Councillor Dedek said, that's going to be used as its original purpose. We get to preserve access to an open space open to the public. We get to, the right thing would be to have a stream of revenue for the town for 20, 40 years, and at the end of the 40 years, we still own that property. What else is there? We get to provide an educational facility that seamlessly integrates with an existing neighborhood school on that street. And I think this is a bit of a motherhood statement, but we get to live up to our commitment to a livable Oakville. And I'm very proud that Oakville is a very educated community, but we didn't get that way by chance or by luck or by fluke. We got there because we live in a community that takes pride in making education a priority. And sometimes, unfortunately, we take for granted that makes us a great community. If this discussion was happening somewhere else, if this was happening in a less developed country, or let's just say it was happening in GTA, in the Jane and Finch area, or the mountain area, there'd be no discussion, there'd be no debate. Open up the school, it's the right thing to do. And I can't believe I'm going to quote a journalist, no offense, but Walter Cronkite said, open up the school door and you close prison. And I appreciate that that's not the circumstances here, it's a bit severe. But it underscores the need and the benefits that we have from a school. Now, we heard all sorts of arguments about traffic, and I don't refute that. I don't agree with the position that traffic will not worsen. There will be some adverse impact. But that happens whenever and wherever we open up a school. It can't be a reason not to open up a school. And so for that reason, I'm going to be voting against the motion. In my view, the tangible and intangible benefits that we derive from educating generations of children significantly outweighs the adverse impact by the traffic, by minimal traffic impairment. So I'm hoping that my fellow councillor colleagues will support me and defeat this motion. Thank you.
Khan did for the town of Oakville and our Lynbrook school community.
Councillor Khan, we thank you. You have inspired people to question. You have encouraged people to think. Most of all, you have motivated people to smile. Thank you for making a difference in our lives.
Thank you for participating in our presentation to remember and celebrate the life of Councillor Max Khan.
Thank you very much, everyone from Lynbrook School. You acquit your school very well. On behalf of council, all of whom miss Max very much, I thank you. Madam Clerk, would you, we'll turn now to our delegations. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the first delegation?
Our first delegation listed in the agenda, Hazel Peel, has withdrawn her delegation, so we move on to the second. Lisa LaCavita has registered to speak, but I believe will address council members only if the members have questions regarding transfer of easement to Abbey Plaza, item 4 on the Administrative Services Committee agenda. Okay, next is Janet Haslett-Thiel on behalf of Joshua Creek Residents Association, here to speak to item 3 on tonight's agenda, election signs.
Ms. Hazlett-Thiel, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening. You didn't think I'd miss tonight, did you? So I'm here on behalf of Joshua Creek Residents Association. Once again, thanks very much for your time. I'm not going to give you another passionate plea for fair, visible elections. I think you've heard us loud and clear. But we did feel that we should acknowledge that the staff have done the consultation that you requested, and that as a board, we endorse the staff's recommendation. We see it as considered, reasonable. It supports the premise of fair, visible elections. We have a regional ban on signs currently in place. We think that that, balanced with the changes that the staff have recommended, is sufficient. We look forward to you endorsing tonight's staff's recommendation. And once again, we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Our next delegation is Tim Danter on behalf of the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association, also speaking regarding the election signs.
Welcome, Mr. Danter. Council looks forward to the views of CMGRA.
Thank you, Mayor Burton, and thank you, Council, for hearing us this evening. I would just like to echo the comments of the JCRA and thank staff number one for their openness and for their due diligence on having the public involved. We would like to endorse staff's proposal and hope that you would support it this evening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next.
Next delegation is Stephen Antonson, also regarding election signs.
Welcome, Mr. Antonson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors. This is my first time to come to the town hall to talk to you, and I think it's a very important point. I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint presentation, hopefully. And to advance it to the next, it's just excellent. Okay. And with regards to the election signs, I just want to share some thoughts that I've had with other neighbors and acquaintances, members of my family and other people that seem to take issue with the idea of limiting the access to information for election purposes. The Canadian flag, it was so nice to hear O Canada so rousingly sung this evening. And the Canadian flag is a rallying point, and it's almost a sign, almost like an election sign or a political sign for the gathering of people. In fact, when we think of John A. Macdonald when he put Canada together, I guess I could ask the question of how many days did he have in campaigning and putting out signs for the public to see what he could envisage as Canada and get people to rally around for him. If it was only 30 days or 45 days, maybe there wouldn't be a Canada today. Maybe he could do it in 10 days, but back at those times, the more time you had to get something to work, the better it was. And I think that issue is the same today. It takes time to get the point across. And if you think of pre-election voting or the pre-advanced polls, the advanced polls, if we start to put time limits on who can put what signs out where and when, it impacts the ability to have fair elections for all. Extended member of my family, I could say my sister-in-law's nephew, went to Afghanistan to help those people have free elections and to aid in their political process. He became the 42nd Canadian casualty of the Canadian Armed Forces in Afghanistan. And I think he would be upset if he found out that the political parties that he was fighting for and supporting were being limited in the number of days that they could put out their signs or where they could even put them. Another Canadian, you may recognize his face, although it's been changing recently on the $5 bill. But Wilfrid Laurier was a fine Canadian politician. I should say Sir Wilfrid Laurier. And he's given a quotation, or a quotation is said about him, that Canada is free and freedom is its nationality, and nothing will prevent me from continuing my task of preserving at all cost our civil liberty. And I believe when you start to limit the ability to put signs up for your political campaign or to have a voice, you start to impact what Sir Wilfrid Laurier stood for and a lot of the other fathers of Confederation. The next slide is full of emotion for a lot of people. There's not many signs there. Signs have been taken away. The opening of the 36 Olympics. My father-in-law ended up in a slave labor camp soon after. My father was there when the German ambassador crossed the barricades to demand the surrender from the Norwegian king. And the Norwegian king had a message for the German ambassador, and right after he crawled back over the barricades and left, the king came down and said, "We better get out of here," because the German Air Force came in and blew the place apart. But this is what happens when you lose signs or the ability to communicate and have free and open elections. It's a slippery slope that we're facing now in taking away signs from everyone. You can have signs all of the same color for all the same party, and here we have one on voter restrictions. You can have signs of all different color and meetings of all different minds all at the same time. I was talking last week to a lady who moved to Canada from Romania, and she remembers the dictatorship that she lived under in Romania, where they had signs, but they were all for the same party, and they were all presented under the direction of the dictator. You can have signs neatly arranged on the streets. It's mostly up to the candidates, and when you look at the signs, you know who put them there. So you know who you can ask to take them away. When you have lots of people, you can have lots of signs and they do get crowded. And when you have few people, the signs get bigger, but they get further apart. Signs are not the issue with political campaigns or with neighborhoods. Signs are a way to communicate ideas to people, and when you lose that, you lose the ability to communicate and have a democracy. So keep in mind the Canadian flag, and I ask you to do your best to make your own choice as to what is the best way to choose how the voting should go and how you could do your best to ensure that signage and political process continues. You're all politicians here, so I ask you to do your best to keep your organization strong and to keep politics working for the best interests of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your information. Next, Madam Clerk.
Our next is Carlene Antonson, also for item 3 on election sign.
Welcome.
Yeah, hello. It's my first time in council, and
Well, we're friendly, and we're
Yeah.
looking forward to your information.
right. Thank you. This was a really strong issue for me too, that we vote and have fair elections and everything, because it's not just Max that passed away, but family members, my mother, other people who again, Stephen mentioned that like her family was in World War II. So there's a lot of stories that are coming out now, so it made us have a strong feeling about this issue. We're a bit late to it, but I'll read what I sent in. It's like, is this the PowerPoint? Not the PowerPoint, but the other one. This one, the Word document. It's not there. Yeah. Yes. Is it on it? Should I put it up or I just read it? I'll just read it. It's like the election sign issue. It's like advanced poll voters, like often we're advanced poll voters. Advanced poll voters, busy working people, apartment and condo dwellers. Stephen and I started out as apartment and condo dwellers when we were young, and our kids, we hope to send them that way soon. Will not have sufficient opportunity to see or have signs under the proposed changes, thereby diminishing and hindering democracy. This type of issue regarding when and where election signs can be placed, becoming an infringement to democracy with regards to free speech on public lands, to paraphrase Animal Farm, where some public lands are more public than others. I don't want to see that. I don't want to believe our restrictions against democracy happening throughout Ontario. The slippery slope of changing signs from 45 days to 30 days. We should have at least 30 days ahead of the first advance poll. You know, you can't just have signs a couple of weeks ahead of the first advance poll or not at all. It says, it seems the Halton region has declared some roads in Oakville as regional roads, and with this declaration it means the prevention of election signs on regional road public property. This was done without public consultation. The regional road public property has a lot of apartments on it, like Trafalgar Road and in those areas, and they need representation. And I'm repeating myself again when I say now the town wants to further restrict the length of time for free speech from 45 days to 30 days. And to have an election campaign, it should be fair and equitable to all. If you have a small group of election volunteers and they have to do their door-to-doors as well as sign placement and all that, it's easy when you have a big crew, but if you don't, then how can you get your voice out there? And this is Canada. I'm going to say there's not enough time. Sometimes the weather during the election period is inclement or extreme. You know, you remember the Midnight Madness weather we had a couple of years ago, or the snow we had. There's been flooding in places like Burlington. So you can have unforeseen delays to elections and election difficulties from that, and signs blown over. We've had tremendous, wind that things just, a lot of shingles off in Ward 6 if you want to see that. But, and again, with the apartment or condo dwellers, they don't necessarily have private lands to place their own signs. And I heard that there's a sign, when they're in the wrong place, that they get gathered up, and there's a proposal to destroy them. But that's somebody's free speech. That's somebody's attempt to talk to the public, and just destroying somebody's opportunity to speak up and participate is not a right thing. Because what was the turnout for the last municipal election? Do we have 90% turnout at these elections? Maybe we need more signs, not less. The issue is really getting more people out, getting the young people involved, getting everybody out there to participate. Lots of signs is a healthy democracy. So I hope that you can choose to go for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Councillor Adams.
So I wondered if I could ask you a question before you sit down. I have one question for you.
Ms. Antonson, the councillor would like to ask you a question.
First of all, thank you for the conversation that we had the other day. I appreciate the chance to have a longer conversation with you. But since then, I've been thinking about the issue of the condo and apartment issue, how you display signs there. Is there anything you think that we could do to enhance that here? We're primarily talking about the public display on public boulevards tonight, but is there something in your experience that you've seen where you're being stopped from being able to display signs?
Yeah, in the previous election, we did a campaign for Max actually, and we had trouble getting into some condominium buildings and some apartment buildings. It didn't matter what political party that we were representing. It's just that, that we were, condo board people would prohibit us from entering a building to hand out flyers or to knock on doors. And if you were to put signs up or something, it would disappear. You couldn't leave things around the mailboxes and stuff like that. So
I have seen condo owners and apartment owners or renters placing signs on balconies, and that in effect is their private place to do so.
Yeah.
I haven't ever had anybody complain that they weren't allowed to or that they've been told to take them away. Have you ever experienced that? I certainly have experienced the kind of thing that you have, which is access.
Some people are actually, I was, when Stephen and I, we started out in an apartment in Brampton a long time ago, and also like in other apartments even around here, is that some people are too afraid to put up a sign because of their close proximity to their neighbors, and they'd rather have some more. I think they would put up signs if they had more anonymity. That it wasn't just, right there and they're in the building, and they can be, obviously a target for if I can, I don't mean to use that word, but.
That's the public street part of it, really.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think we've all experienced that same thing, reluctance of a homeowner to place a sign on their boulevard or on their front lawn because they don't want their neighbor to be angry at them for some reason.
And if you have I don't know about basement tenants, where do they put their signs? Maybe they have different politics from the other people in the building, the renters.
Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, that is the last public delegation for tonight. And I would draw your attention to your standing committee reports from Community Services and Administrative Services on May 19th, and look for your disposition. That means a mover and a seconder. Councillor Duddick and Councillor Hutchins, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Council, the first item on our agenda tonight is the consent item, the report on Edgemere Estates. Councillor Giddings.
I'd be happy to move receipt, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Seconded by Councillor Hutchins, and that opposed, if any, and that carries. Now we have the meat of the meeting, so to speak, our discussion items. Election signs is the one after this one, but for the sake of those who've come for that item, I would suggest that we deal with that now. Councillor Duddick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to propose a motion that we accept the report and that we follow option 1, which is status quo. In reviewing, and I thank staff very much for the work they've done to vet out various options for our consideration, but for me personally, when I look at different display times, 30, 45, it gets confusing for not only the public, but for the candidates who might be coming along, and also in terms of the enforcement. I have a problem with the games that can sometimes go on with signs, that if somebody is moving a sign from one location to another just for a prank or whatever, that person is losing that sign. At least now they can go to sign jail and retrieve it. So, I mean, when I look at several of the other things involved, I think it's just as simple to stay with status quo, quite honestly, even though I was a strong advocate of the ban, keep it simple. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Knoll. Council, just as advice, to keep the status quo, all you have to do is pass recommendation 1, that you receive the report. Okay, perfect. So that we're all understood on that. Councillor Adams?
I just wanted to comment briefly, if I may. I support the motion that's on the floor. We've already dealt with the regional piece. I disagreed with the way the region dealt with it, but here we are. We have a by-election underway in Ward 6, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. It'll be a good test of our current new status quo, and we have a federal election this fall, which will be a second good test of the new status quo, and perhaps after that would be an appropriate time to revisit the question of whether any tweaks or changes need to be made in order to enhance or ask for the return of some of the space on the regional roads and to remove other parts that are deemed to be obtrusive or being inappropriately used in front of residential homes, for example.
Thank you, Councillor, for those thoughts. Any others? Councillor Duddick?
Thank you. While I respect my colleague's suggestion that maybe we could revisit, quite honestly, to this point, let's just get this done. Let's give some certainty so we can move on. So I don't want to leave the extra boot to drop in the future, people thinking we're revisiting it yet again, unless it's a new term of council.
Well, there's certainly no boot in the motion, and the council knows that anyone's free to bring things up anytime they want. Councillor Knoll.
Just a very quick comment. Like Councillor Duddick, I was very much in favor of a total ban at one point as well, but I must tell you that this is a case where my opinion was swayed both by the quality of the research by the staff, but more importantly by the outpouring of passion by the community that really felt strongly about maintaining public property placement. So this was an interesting case of where I went in with one very clear and ardent position and came up with something entirely different. It was largely because of the delegations to this council.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you very much. And just for consistency's sake, I won't be supporting the motion because I still believe, and again, we keep talking about a ban, but initially we were talking about restricting the private property. And, you know, I was sent here not too long ago with a very loud mandate from knocking on doors that my residents did not like that. They overwhelmingly told me to do something about it when I got here, and I'm going to try and be true to that. So I would ask for a recorded vote when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Councillor El.
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting the recommendation, absolutely. However, I do have a question of staff, and it has to do with one of the comments they have, where staff will be reviewing current policies regarding the political advertising on transit buses and transit shelters for future elections. Do we know when that will be coming back to us? The reason I'm asking, it was an issue in the last election, although it is public space, and I think everybody needs clarification on that.
As part of the policy review process, so in terms of it could be later this year, I believe we're coming back with the policies.
So if I were a Liberal, an NDP, a Conservative, or a Green, can I rent space on a town bus today?
Yes, you can. The only issue was related to town policies, the code of conduct, and I'm forgetting the second policy. Do you remember? The use of town resources. So we just have to get that clarity, and then it'll be fine.
Oh, so for the federal election, they can use the
Yes, the federal election, our policies already permit that.
And for our municipal election in Ward 6? Could they put signs on the transit bus and transit shelters?
We need to change our town policies before we can do that.
So they can't
just
do
for
that.
Municipal candidates, but for federal and provincial, it's fine at this point in time.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeMoff.
I'm not going to support the motion. When I ran in 2010, I
felt that we should restrict the signs to private property. I ran in 2014 and said exactly the same thing, and like Councillor O'Meara, the residents supported what I was saying about it, and we're not talking about a ban, we're talking about restricting them to private property. And quite honestly, if you look at the map of where they're going to be allowed, in the north, there's hardly any places where they are. Most of them, the arterial roads are in wards 1, 2, and 3. So anyway, I will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Others? Mr. Hutchins?
I will be supporting the motion. As you know, I've been very much in favor of keeping the status quo, and was actually very disappointed to find the regional banned signs without any public consultation. I have a question for staff. On Clearview, because of the region's ban, the only road that is available for anybody in Clearview to see a sign is in the southern part of it, where there's essentially it's a commercial road for industrial applications. Very few people travel it. So basically Clearview has been cleared of signs, if I can put it that way. Why isn't the Kingsway, which is clearly an arterial route, allowed? I know there are limited areas on Kingsway that you can have public access, but I think that's one of the areas that maybe should be looked at.
Through your worship, our roads are classified as they are in the official plan, Livable Oakville. Kingsway Drive is not an arterial roadway. It's a major collector roadway. Sheridan Garden Drive to the south is an arterial roadway. Having said that, this council's free to elect to place them on any road they would like to. But if you vote status quo, it's arterial roads only, and Kingsway is not an arterial road.
Excuse me, Dan, but how easy it to change from a major road to an arterial road? I mean, what's the difference?
Well, you wouldn't change the road. The road is designated as a major collector. What you're really asking, Councillor, is can you allow them on a major collector? The answer is yes, if Council chooses to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
My fellow colleague has asked an interesting question, which is, what if, for example, 8th line north of Upper Middle was asked to be redesignated to be a collector road instead of a minor arterial road?
Councillor,
which is a question that many of my residents have once asked.
Councillor, I thought staff were clearly advising that if you wanted to do something to the permission for signs on the road, that all you had to do was to name the road, move an amendment naming the road and permitting signs on it. You didn't have to start reclassifying all of the town's roads. And I detect that we have wandered somewhat far away from the intent and purpose of this particular motion.
Not at all, sir. We have many roads that have some similar characteristics, but not entirely the same characteristics as 8th line north of Upper Middle. And our staff have noted to me that there are other streets that also share the arterial road designation that do have some homes that front onto them, like 8th line north of Upper Middle. And I have inquired as to whether it might be preferable to allow signs on some of the major arterials in the area and not on 8th line. Under our current circumstances, we don't get to choose that because the region has already banned them off the major arterials.
As I say, we appear to be wandering away from the motion before us. But thank you for the wander. It was entertaining. Any other speakers? All right, I'll call the vote. I hear a cry for call the vote. As I call the vote, I would remind you that a recorded vote has been requested, and under our rules, a recorded vote can be had on request, even after a vote. I just want to say that during an election, we are often treated to comments about deploring the plethora of signs on public property. And during our periodic examinations of this issue, we only received delegations in favor of keeping them. And the absence of delegations begging us to restrict them or remove them was quite notable in this process. And so I too will be supporting Councillor Duddeck's motion. And with that, thank you for letting me give voice to my feelings. I would ask those who are voting in favor of Councillor Duddeck's motion to receive the report to rise to be recognized. The chair recognizes Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar, Mayor Burton, Councillor Hutchins, Councillor Giddings, Councillor Duddeck. Please rise to be recognized in opposition. The chair recognizes Councillor DeMoff, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor O'Meara. I declare the motion carried. Thank you, everyone. It's almost like Groundhog Day. We've been here before, and we probably will be here again in some future term, unless Councillor Adams makes good on his threat to bring it back sooner. Council, I wonder if I could call your attention now to the item 2 on the discussion list, the 2015-2018 Council Strategic Plan, which, after all of the consultation and the back and forth that we've had on it, I hope has met everybody's satisfaction. Are there any questions on this item? Is there any desire to do anything with this item? A mover, Councillor Duddeck. A seconder, Councillor Knoll. Any discussion? Any statements of pride? Councillor O'Meara.
I'd just like to thank Jane and the staff for at those late additions as well. They were great and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great to live in a town where the people know that council listens to them and the council knows that staff listens to council and the people. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And those opposed? It's carried unanimously. As a matter of fact, please indulge me. Let me have a recorded vote. Please rise to be recognized. Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar, Mayor Burton, Councillor Hutchins, Councillor Giddings, Councillor DeMoff, Councillor Duddeck, Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Meara. I want to thank you, Council, because this has been a hallmark of the way we work together, where we carefully consider each other's views, synthesize them into a work plan, and that allows us to really achieve results instead of arguing endlessly for the people who send us here to get things done. With that, I would call your attention to the regional representation report from the Clerk's Department. The recommendation being that staff be provided with direction regarding Council's determination of conditions and criteria for regional representation without loss of current regional representation. Councillor Elgar.
Your Worship, I think Councillor Duddeck had her hand up first, in fairness. So I would so move that we add a 7th councillor for the region. I would move that. At this point, I would ask that we do not have to, at this point, make a decision on the ward boundaries. We can do that later, but I would just move the 7th councillor, and we can deal with the ward boundaries or any revisions we see over the next few months.
Councillor Duddeck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just building on Councillor Elgar's suggestions, I confirmed prior to the meeting with staff that in our report, items A and B, B does capture that analysis, that we look at options of the configuration of 7 wards. I believe we were provided with 2 previously, but once we had 7A and 7B in the previous configuration. But there's various, what shall I say, populations have varied considerably in terms of the build out, and so looking at different options might be appropriate in terms of how that's configured. So I think the focus point right now is just saying definitely to the region, we support a 7th councillor for the town of Oakville. I don't think it's really in our best interest to even get into waiting a vote. I think that's beyond our purview, so I won't even capture that.
So, in terms of what the region wanted from each of the municipalities, they wanted to know if we had additional criteria to the criteria established by the region, which was no loss of representation. So, if you would like to rule out weighted voting, then you should probably add that as a criteria that you would be against weighted voting. So, so I would ask you to look at the menu of choices and maybe pick in a little more detailed way so that we give clear advice that the region can understand. Councillor Elgin?
Your Worship, I would refer to table number 6, one, where it says 1 member of Oakville and 2 members of Milton, 2021. It was where you would look, you see what Oakville would now have 8 council members, which would include yourself.
Yes.
Versus, yeah.
So, right, so what I'm saying is,
and I would rule out table number 7.
right, so we would tell the region, we need a motion that would tell the region that we would like to add a criteria that there not be weighted voting at the region.
And I would so move that.
Okay, so the clerk will capture that. Are there any other criteria that having looked at the report, Councillor Adams?
Just for clarification, we've got on page 125 A, B, and now I'll create a new C that's called that weighted voting not be a criteria. Is what's on the table right now A, B, and the new C? Or is it a different A that just says we want?
I've asked you if you have criteria around weighted voting. The answer appears to be yes. We'll see if it carries on a vote. And it would become an A, B, and your new C, yes.
Okay, so is what's on the floor A, B, and the new C?
Yes.
Thank you. That was my question. I have a question of our staff related to B. We went through last term a long and windy trailed review of boundaries. Is there new information between then and now that would change your review? Or would we find ourselves back to where we were when we did it last time?
No, there is no new information at this time. Option B was basically looking forward to reacting to what comes out of the region. So what the region decides for its representation, we would take that and we would go back and do further analysis on the boundary. So that's the purpose of B.
So to try and guess where you might go with it, if we got the extra 1 seat, then we might get a recommendation from you to pass what we passed last time. If we didn't get an extra seat, you might come back and say, consider whether or not you want to review the current representation process or the current boundaries given the 6 wards that we have.
That is correct. The last council decided that we would structure the boundaries around an increased representation at the region, and that work is done and looks forward. We would probably review it but make minimal changes to that. If there was something else to come out of the region, we would do a more thorough review and bring it back.
Okay, so if we had no change in our representation, which is perhaps the most likely alternative situation, then we would find ourselves back here with a report from you asking whether you want us to, or whether we want you to go through another review process for changing the 6-ward boundary system we have.
That's exactly correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Duddick? I was just going to say, I'm aware that the population figures have changed since Professor Williams did his work for us, forecasting out into the future. And I think it would be prudent to ask staff to begin now to review what a 7-ward system would look like. As well, as long as we're engaging that work, to have them at this time also evaluate what a new 6-ward system of fairer representation would look like for the slender possibility that the region wound up deciding not to do anything. Because our wards are so out of balance, I don't think we can continue it much longer. So I would ask the mover and the seconder if they'd like to add that. Councillor Elger?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek?
That's absolutely fair.
All right. Councillor Lapworth? Mr. Lalonde, Commissioner.
I just wanted to call your attention to item A. I'm not sure that it's being interpreted the way it was intended. Item A saw an increase in the representation from Oakville, and it saw an increase in representation at Milton. And from the conversation I heard, you were interested only in suggesting an increase in the Oakville councillors.
No. Your table is perfect. What's happening at the region is a remarkably collegial and congenial process to redress an imbalance that everyone has recognized with Milton's representation, and we are in support of, and our own, and we're all working towards that common goal. Okay, Councillor Adams?
Your creation of Part D of our motion, which is and staff began a process to review the ward boundaries under both a 6 and a 7 process. I wonder whether our staff might benefit by waiting the 2 cycles, perhaps, of regional council, in order to determine where the region might go with it. If, for example, we discover in 2 months' time that the region really isn't going somewhere, then we get to tell our staff, redo the 6 ward boundary. If we discover in 2 months' time that the region's willing to do something, then we might hold off.
I'm council's servant. The mover and seconder have accepted the idea. Councillor Dudek, are you?
I believe the mayor's suggestion captures that, in all honesty. It looks at 7 if we're successful, or 6 if we're not. That's my understanding. So you've covered itself, and we won't be working on anything, I would imagine, until we know the outcome of the region.
I wonder if I could just ask our staff if they have an opinion on their work time frame.
Commissioner Lalonde.
If you select option B, we will structure our work around doing that to minimize the amount of effort. So that if we knew that it was coming up at regional council in the next 2 cycles, we wouldn't start that work until we've got a definitive answer from them.
Okay, so we're satisfied about the efficiency of everyone. Any others? Then I'll call the vote, and I'll ask for a recorded vote. All those in favor, please stand to be recognized. We're getting our exercise tonight. Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elger, Mayor Burton, Councillor Hutchins, Councillor Giddings, Councillor Demoff, Councillor Dudek, Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Meara. Thank you. I declare the motion carried in all 4 of its parts. Now, that brings us, if I can get back to the agenda page, brings us to the Sister City Agreement, where the recommendation is that you authorize the execution of the draft Sister City Agreement that you've had with the City of Huai'an in Jiangsu Province in the People's Republic of China. As you know, Jiangsu Province is the sister province of the province of Ontario. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion? Councillor Hutchins, is there a seconder? Councillor Elger, any discussion? Well, I think it would be in order, and it would be very well received by our sister city if you would accommodate me one more time with some exercise. We'll all rise and start walking. Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elger, Mayor Burton, Councillor Hutchins, Councillor Giddings, Councillor Demoff, Councillor Dudek, Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Meara. I declare the motion carried. Council, you know, we're big fans of active transportation, and now we're inventing active meetings. There are no confidential discussion items and no advisory committee minutes. No information, your information items have been circulated electronically. You have your list of status, your status of outstanding issues list. There is new business, let's see. Is there any new business that I don't know about? Notices of motion, emergency, congratulatory, or condolence? Madam Clerk, I see none. Are there any regional reports or questions regarding town boards and advisory committees? Madam Clerk, I see none. We have a request for report. It's entitled Catholic Elementary School Site on Coronation Drive. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Hutchins, that staff report on the status of the Catholic Elementary School site on Coronation Drive and options for the site if no school board expresses interest in using the site. All those in favor of approving, Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to your request?
If you wouldn't mind, it's a matter of great interest in my ward, and it's similar in a way to some of the surplus school sites that were dealt with in southeast Oakville. I have heard from a member of the Halton District School Board that they may not be interested in it, and so the options for other schools to be interested in it are dwindling quickly. So barring another French school, and you know how much I've worked at getting those, but so if our staff would be able to investigate this particular issue, it's only just recently come to my attention through one of the Catholic Board trustees. I know that we've dealt with this kind of thing to control what happens to a site if we can't find a use for it of our own, and so I wondered if we could consider not only our own purposes, but if we don't have a purpose for it as a municipal purpose, to look at ways of controlling what happens to it thereafter.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I now detect the cleverness in having the Ward 3 Councillor Nick Hutchins second your motion. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the request? All those against? I declare the report request approved. Councillor Adams, are you asking for an active vote? Yes, please. You're joking, right? No, I'm not. Councillor Adams, you risk asking Councillor Elgar to want more information. Councillor Adams, Councillor Grant, Councillor Knoll, Councillor Laffworth, Councillor Elgar, Mayor Burton, Councillor Hutchins, Councillor Giddings, Councillor DeMoff, Councillor Duddick, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor O'Meara. I declare the request approved. So it's not active meeting, it's active voting. That's the new phrase. So are there any other requests for reports unknown to the chair? All right, I see none, Madam Clerk. I wonder if we could have a mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws as listed in the agenda. Councillor Knoll. Oh, and deleting 2015-61. So Councillor Knoll and Councillor Lappworth, no recorded vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and the bylaws are adopted. Council, it's been great working with you. That completes our agenda, and we are adjourned.